To any 911 call operators. What is the funniest 911 call you've ever had? A guy calls from a payphone to complain that he has a pipe wrench stuck up his butt and he needed an ambulance. He gave his location as the corner where the payphone was located. I asked him if he could tell me his appearance so I could be sure the medics could find him. His response: "Look dude. I'll be the only guy on the corner with a pipe wrench in his butt." I couldn't argue with that. I called 911 about two cows running around on a street by my parents' neighborhood. 911 operator asked me to describe the animals and I said, "Lady, I promise you they're the only two cows running down the street right here." Then one got hit by a jeep and I had to clarify that there was now only one cow running down the street. My late aunt once called 911 because my uncle wouldn't change the fan that was blowing on her. Because it was a small community in NE, Michigan. The police laughed and came out and changed the fan. Keeping the peace the old school way. My kid worked for animal control. We are eating dinner and 911 dispatch calls him. Some panicked lady had called 911 about an owl in a tree that couldn't fly. It had been sitting in the tree for a half hour not moving. Of course it was just before dusk and the owl was just waiting for dark so it could go hunt for dinner. Then there was the call about the one-legged duck at the park. Edit to add. He actually went to the park to make sure the duck wasn't injured but realized after 15 minutes how silly he looked chasing after this one-legged duck that was outrunning him. In Michigan we get hotels that put plastic swans with movable heads on their grass area to keep the Canadian geese away. Swans are really mean birds. Our ACOs get at least one call a day about those poor swans who have been there for days and haven't moved. Also had a resident call the ACO about a dead animal in his yard. Gets out there. Typical suburban yard. Mulch edging all the way around the fence. Decorative plants here and there. Very uncluttered and neat. And small. He pointed to the dead animal and told her to take care of it. She walked over and didn't see anything. He called her an idiot and told her it was right in front of her. She picked up a decorative rock and turned around and said this. He said, "Of course, what are you, some kind of moron?" She took it to him telling him we're not allowed to dispose of dead wildlife and he has to put it in his trash can, then laid the rock on the table in front of him. He called her an A and slammed the door. My mom was a 911 operator in the SF Bay Area in the 80s and 90s. I asked her to tell me a story to pass along. So here it is. I got a 911 call and I couldn't understand the caller. He was slurring his words. I knew he was calling from a bar, so I asked if he'd been drinking, and after asking many times I was able to determine that he wanted the police. Not an ambulance. He wanted to file assault charges because a woman pulled his tongue. I asked, "How was she able to pull your tongue?" And he said, "Because I stuck it out at her." I had to keep muting the call because I was laughing so hard. Apparently my supervisor went on to play this call in seminars for years and always got a ton of laughter. Tell your mom thank you for the laughs. Not 911 but worked for animal control dispatch in a tourist town during my senior year in high school. Got a call from a lady that had called 911 previously and was told to call our number. Picked up the phone to what sounded like a whole car of very panicked people all yelling at once. After asking what was wrong several times, I finally heard someone yell, "A deer. There's a deer in somebody's yard. Y'all gotta come pick it up." Thinking it was a dead deer / roadkill, I said an animal control officer would come pick up the body soon. And a kid in the background starts bawling saying the officer was gonna kill it. So I paused for a second and asked, "Is the deer alive? What is it doing?" Someone far away from the phone yelled, "It's just sitting there in the yard." So I said, "Yeah, this is Texas. He lives there. Just don't touch him or get too close and y'all will be okay." Literally not even 5 minutes later we got a call from another tourist about a deer chasing a family after they tried to take a selfie with it. To this day I'm still not sure if it was the same family. But wow. I hope it was. In your heart of hearts, you know it was the same family. I was the caller. My deck had a couple unsafe spots. Normally I avoided them just fine. But on this night, it had snowed. I stepped outside for just a minute. Because snow is very rare here. In doing so, I forgot about the unsafe spots. I stepped on one. And my leg dropped through. As I fell, the boards on either side of my leg bent. But then retracted. The hole was smaller than my knee now. I couldn't get out. My girlfriend got me a coat to sit on. Because my butt was already starting to get cold. And we called 911. Fortunately, I live so close to the fire department. They were there in less than 3 minutes. I live so close. Had I Wilhelm screamed as I fell, they'd have likely heard me and arrived even faster. But 4 super strong firemen couldn't pull me out either. And I will add to that I think the first half of the sentence would be fairly humorous out of context. Anyway, one of them went to get a chainsaw out of the fire truck. And while we waited, I started singing The Pit from Parks and Rec. And they all joined in with me. And we had a good laugh about my situation. Other than having a sore purple leg for a few days, I was fine. I bought them all coffee a few days later. Super fun guys. 10/10. Would definitely be rescued by them again. I used to do overnight security. And have had to call 911 several times. My favorite was a gentleman who was obviously on something. Jittery. Touching his face a lot. Couldn't sit still. He tried to break into a house next to our campus. So I dialed 911 right then. As I'm giving them a description of what he is wearing, he starts stripping his clothes off, running across our campus. So I have to tell the 911 operator. Yeah. He butt naked in the middle of street. Laying down. I think he's doing the worm. We lost the guy on cameras. No clue where he is. 5 cop cars show up and they round up the only guy in our area with no shoes or a shirt. We went outside to give the cops a statement. And the guy is trying to convince the police that he is the one who called them to report someone stealing his shoes. The cops don't buy it for a second. But they let him go. And he just runs off into the night. Barefoot. No shirt. Sometimes I wish I had the uncontainable free spirit of a junkie. I'm not sure if this is true. But I read about an old lady who called 911 because a ghost was in her house. She was a sweet woman who apparently made calls often. So the officers showed up and pretended to arrest the ghost so she would feel better. There was a period of time where a nice, crazy, probably dementia old lady got my work number and thought I was the power company. She would call every few weeks to complain about stuff and I would tell her she had the wrong number nicely and hang up. One day, I decided to just keep working and occasionally just make conversation continuing noises into the phone hum. Yeah. Oh. That kind of thing whenever she paused. I think she was on the line for like 45 minutes. At the end she thanked me profusely and seemed very happy. I think she just needed someone to talk to. It kind of makes me sad. My mom was friends with a similar old lady who could talk for hours without you having to say a thing. I would always see my mom just saying yes. Uh-huh. Wow over and over again. One day I watched her fall asleep mid-phone call and then wake up 30 minutes later and continued the MHMs like nothing happened. My great aunt was the type where if she got you on the phone, You could be there for 2 hours listening to her talk. One time she called my grandfather and said she wanted to make sure her new phone was working. He replied it works and hung up while he could escape. Pre-9/11. Before addresses were automatically shown, a couple having sex knocked the phone off the nightstand and they had the police on speed dial. I thought she was being choked out, so I had the phone company track the address and sent the cavalry. When they pounded on the front door, I heard the woman say, "Oh my God, there are 5 cop cars outside." The guy went downstairs and she picked up the phone and said hello. I said, "Hello, ma'am. This is the police. Are you okay?" She said, "I'm fine. We were busy." I said I had been listening for the last few minutes and she said, "Oh. We must have knocked the phone on the floor." The patrol guys told the guy they had to see her in person at the same time I was talking to her. She came downstairs so they could verify she was okay. They said she was pretty embarrassed. Edit, thank you so much for the award. My first one ever.